Do not forget, you can support the channel with a like, and you can also subscribe to be aware of the latest published videos. Thank you. We hope that here you can find the latest news, ideas, and discoveries from the scientific world.
10 formidable monarchs who ruled vast empires in ancient Asia. Some of humanity's most ancient civilizations originated on the current continent of Asia. At the dawn of civilization, places like Mesopotamia, Harappa, China, and others saw various advanced settlements that consisted of a large populace. Those settlements were ruled by several powerful monarchs in the succeeding centuries. In fact, the kingdoms of ancient Asia gave rise to some of the most dynamic kings of antiquity. Those rulers changed history in their own ways during their time, and their impact on the modern world is still evident in many ways. But we have forgotten most of these monarchs. In this article, we will discuss a collection of them, more or less heard of, who ruled large kingdoms in some parts of the Asian continent. Rule of the Han Dynasty of China. The Han Dynasty of China gave the country its modern identity. We now ethnically refer to the Chinese people as Han Chinese. The Han Chinese are the largest ethnic group of people in the modern world. In antiquity, the Han Dynasty of China came into power in the year c. 206 BC, but established its hegemony from 202 BC onward. This dynasty is also known in history as the Western or former Han. One of their greatest monarchs was Emperor Han Wudi. Wudi was born as Lech in the year 156 BC, as far as is known. He ascended the throne at the very young age of 15, in the year c. 141 BC. Under him, ancient China saw one of its greatest territorial expansions. The polity's reach extended from the Fergana Valley in the west to north-central Korea in the east and north-central Vietnam in the south. Wudi also successfully thwarted the continuous raids on his northern borders by a powerful tribal confederation by the name of Chunu. Not only did he achieve military success, but he also united his vast empire under the same ideology and philosophical entity of Confucianism. Under his rule, the country prospered both economically and culturally. Emperor Han Wudi had a very long and successful reign. He died around the year 87 BC. Hammurabi of the Old Babylonian Dynasty. Hammurabi, or Hammurabi the Great, is best known in history for his brilliant code of laws. This text of laws by Hammurabi is one of the oldest known detailed codes of conduct in history and also one of the best preserved ones. They are known for their fairness and equanimity and have been a model for subsequent codes and laws in other texts and religious literature. The language of Hammurabi's code is Akkadian. Hammurabi was a king of the old or first Babylonian dynasty of Mesopotamia. He was an Amorite by ethnicity. The Amorites were a Semitic-speaking group of people. Hammurabi came to the throne in c. 1792 BC. He was a benevolent king under whom the people lived mostly in peace and prosperity. He undertook numerous military campaigns and built a large empire. Because of his military prowess, the entire of Mesopotamia came under his rule, under the umbrella of the Babylonian Empire. Hammurabi passed away in c. 1750 BC, and Babylonian hegemony faltered right after his death. Hammurabi has remained one of the most famous ancient Mesopotamian rulers in modern popular culture. Bimbisara of the Haryanka dynasty of India. King Bimbisara of ancient India's Haryanka dynasty was one of the first truly great Indian monarchs whose historicity could be proven with some certainty. He ruled the kingdom of Magadha, which had produced some of India's greatest emperors over the centuries. King Bimbisara is said to be the founder of his dynasty. Before him, Magadha was just another polity, but it became powerful under his rulership. Bimbisara lived at a time when Gautama Buddha was preaching his Buddhist doctrines and Mahavira Vardhamana was teaching Jaina philosophy. Thus, he lived during the time of Asia's two most important religious teachers. King Bimbisara was probably born in the year c. 559 BC and started his rule in c. 544 BC at a very young age. He expanded his empire through military conquests and matrimonial alliances. Bimbisara also endorsed diverse religious faiths in his territory. He left a great administrative structure in his kingdom and a powerful military, on the basis of which Magadha reached the pinnacle of glory in the succeeding years. King Bimbisara passed away in 491 BC after many years of successful rule. He was supposedly put to death by his own son, Ajatashatru. Ancient Magadha was roughly centered on the modern Indian state of Bihar. Sargon the Great of the Akkadian dynasty. Sargon the Great is considered by most experts today to be the first great king of recorded history. He was perhaps the founder of the Akkadian dynasty of Mesopotamia. That is why he is also referred to as Sargon of Akkad. The Akkadian dynasty or empire is thus named because it was centered on the town of Akkad. After the Sumerian civilization, the Akkadian Empire is generally accepted as the first true great realm of Mesopotamian antiquity. Sargon the Great came to power in c. 2334 BC. He conquered the various Sumerian city-states and founded his vast empire. He was a military genius who had led numerous successful campaigns even outside of Mesopotamia, all the way to the Levant and the Mediterranean Sea. Sargon was probably Semitic-speaking and came from a humble background, from which he rose through his great intelligence, presence of mind, and sheer ability. Out of Sargon's children, his daughter Enheduanna the priestess is quite noteworthy because she is the earliest known author in world history. Tiglath-Pileser III of the Neo-Assyrian dynasty. One of the greatest empires of antiquity was the Assyrian Empire, which rose to unprecedented heights during a phase that we now call the Neo-Assyrian Empire period. At its pinnacle, this entity dominated Mesopotamia, Persia, the Levant, Asia Minor, Arabia, etc. According to many experts, the advent of the Neo-Assyrian dynasty as a superpower happened due to the brilliance of its ruler Tiglath-Pileser III. Some even believe him to be the practical founder of this dynasty. Tiglath-Pileser III came to power in the year c. 745 BC, probably through a coup. The administrative innovations and military strategies that this ruler introduced during his time were followed by scores of monarchs later on. In his style of functioning and ruling, Tiglath-Pileser III remained an unsurpassed monarch. He passed away in c. 727 BC. Sennacherib of the Neo-Assyrian dynasty. Sennacherib is the most famous king from the ancient Assyrian civilization of Mesopotamia. He was the second king of the eponymous dynasty, probably named after his father, Sargon II. Sennacherib's siege of Jerusalem has made him immortal, as he is a much talked about figure in the Old Testament. He came to power in c. 705 BC, and his reign is marked by several military campaigns that he undertook. Contrary to the popular belief of the time that he was martially weak, Sennacherib had several military successes, including the subjugation of several towns and cities in the Levant region. But his campaign against Jerusalem might have been unsuccessful due to a miraculous outbreak of some disease in his military camps. Sennacherib is also known for the destruction of the settlement of Babylon. But at the same time, he was also a great builder who embellished his capital city of Nineveh with grand edifices. This Assyrian great ruler passed away in the year c. 681 BC. Menander I of the Greco-Bactrian and Indo-Greek kingdoms. In the aftermath of Alexander the Great's conquests in history, a lot of his conquered territories were divided between his generals, friends, and families after his death. We refer to those people mostly today by the term diadochi, which means successors. Those successor states were dispersed across a large portion of the globe. Out of them, one entity rose in the subsequent years by the name of the Greco-Bactrian Kingdom. It encompassed a large area over the modern nations of Afghanistan, Turkmenistan, Tajikistan, Uzbekistan, Iran, and Pakistan, touching almost the northwestern parts of present-day India. The region of Bactria was roughly centered on the modern Afghan province of Balkh. One of those Greco-Bactrian kings was Milinda. He was most likely born around 180 BC. Menander later became an Indo-Greek king when he ventured further deep into the northwestern territories of the Indian subcontinent. In fact, several sources claim that he even made several successful raids into the eastern regions of India. Today, he is considered to be the greatest of the Indo-Greek kings. He is also possibly the only Indo-Greek king mentioned and praised by ancient Western historians. It is said that later in his life Menander converted to Buddhism and became one of its greatest patrons. His discourse with a Buddhist monk has been recorded in a famous work called Milinda Panha. Madhu Chanyu of the Xiongnu Empire. Much before the Mongol dominance of the medieval world, a great nomadic empire existed towards the north of China, centered on the Mongolian plateau. We know this entity as the Xiongnu Empire. Many experts believe that the later Huns came from this group of people, apart from the Mongols themselves. It became a completely powerful entity when a great leader amongst them called Madhu Chanyu came to power in c. 209 BC by killing his father. Madhu united the scattered tribes of the Mongols into a powerful unit, just as Genghis Khan would do much later on. Then, finding the Chinese weak, Madhu started raiding their northern borders, thereby making himself and his empire rich and prosperous. His efforts made the Xiongnu Empire the greatest in its time. It extended from South Siberia to China's northern borders, encompassing an important part of the empire's wide and huge boundary limits. Thus, under Madhu's successful overlordship, his empire became an entity of gigantic size and variety. Madhu Chanyu ruled until c. 174 BC. In his earlier days, he was not his father's favorite son or the favorite heir to succeed. But by using guile and his cunning ways, he usurped the throne and made their kingdom one of the best in the world in its time. Most of the records of Madhu Chanyu and his Xiongnu tribe are preserved in Chinese works. Their origin and other aspects, like language, etc., are disputed and matter for further research.